Welcome to the Forensic Financialist, where we simplify business and leadership challenges and choose the road that leads to wisdom and excellence. We discuss tough issues facing business and figure out easy-to-implement solutions. Using the rear-view mirror approach, we look in the rear view to move towards a brighter future. Here's your host, Jeff Newkirk.
Welcome to the Forensic Financialist, where we aim to improve your business and help you grow both personally and professionally. I'm your host, Jeff Newkirk. Well, today we have a very special guest, one who is an expert not only in sales in all areas of the sales function, but is also has a drive for success, and even better than that, a drive to help others achieve success as well. Mr. Rob Smith. So Rob is the president and founder of 5S Sales Consulting, a firm specializing in advising and implementing sales strategy, sales process, and sales execution. Rob draws on over 20 years of broad and deep corporate experience in global and national sales leadership, P&L management, engineering, and business development. A natural leader, Rob has led sales organizations with annual revenues from $5 million to over $600 million. As a former small business owner, it is Rob's mission to help other small and medium-sized business owners get back on a growth track and position their ventures for success. His purpose is to help people create wealth for others. Rob holds a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville and an MBA from Southern Methodist University. Go Mustangs. He lives in Spring, Texas with his wife of 21 years. Congratulations, Rob, and 3 children. So it's great to have you with us today, Rob, as a sales expert. And let's get started. So you kind of made a career change, and you were an engineer and did a pivot of your own. So what made you change career paths, and was there a sort of a point in time where you said, oh, man, I really need to change?
Well, thanks for having me today, Jeff. It's always good spending time with you. And, given that I'm a Mustang, hopefully there's, not a little bit of tension there between the horsies and the frogs, right? Your daughter's a piece to you.
Well, yeah,
a little bit of a rivalry
I got a lot of money going to Texas Christian and Horned Frogs, but that's okay. We won't hold it against you.
Well, I appreciate that. So to your question, the career change was, I think I recognized that maybe I wasn't wired to be an engineer, although, from the time I was a kid, that's what I wanted to do. And it wasn't too far into my engineering career that my mentor at the time, who was the VP of engineering for the company that I was working for, took me out to lunch. We sat down, ordered our sandwiches, handed the menus back, and he leaned on the table, looked me square in the face, and said, "Rob, you're not an engineer." And
so what was your immediate reaction to that? Because that's what you were doing.
I thought I was going to get fired, Jeff. I thought I'd messed something up, right? So I was like, the gentleman's name is Jerry Partlow, and I said, "Jerry, what do you mean? Am I not doing a good job?" And he's like, no, relax. He could see that I was, kind of really flustered by his proclamation. And
well, that would cause anybody some stress.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially a young kid, with a fresh engineering degree. And he's like, "No, you're a fine engineer." He's just like, "I don't think you're an engineer." And so I asked him, I said, "Well, Jerry, I, just spent years of my life preparing to be an electrical engineer. Enlighten me. What am I?" And he told me I was a sales guy. And I was kind of offended.
Yeah.
Candidly.
Well, being an engineer, studying to be an engineer, I'm assuming that you took that sort of as a fence, thinking, I can do other things other than sell.
Right. And, any sort of, company that makes a product that has, a development group and a sales group, there's always some tension there, right? Because my perception of a sales guy or salesperson was, they just said yes and then tossed it over the fence for the technical guys to figure out. And that was my kind of keyhole in my perception at the time. Also a sales career for me probably had been colored by my father as well. My dad was an auto mechanic, worked dealerships, and he'd always come home and gripe about the sleazy sales guy that did this, that, or the other. So, but Jerry's input stuck with me, right? I went home that night to my then girlfriend and now wife and told her that, hey, Jerry told me I'm not an engineer. And she's like, yeah, I can see that. She knew.
You've been doing something that you really shouldn't be doing, Rob.
Yeah. She's like, you're not the typical engineer, that's for sure. Whether or not you're a sales guy, I don't know. But that stuck with me. I mean, I onboarded it. I respected, the heck out of Jerry, and he'd been around a heck of a lot longer than I had at that point. He was probably my age now at that point. That was a long time ago. But that stuck with me, and when the opportunity presented itself to transition, I took advantage of it.
Well, good for you for doing that and recognizing it. And in today's world with the pandemic and so many people being faced with transition, this is the right time for them to really take stock in what their passion is and what they really want to do with their career. What advice would you have for some folks going through this transition, whether they want to or it's forced on them, to really come out of it like you have? I mean, very successful. What suggestions would you have for these people?
Well, I think you said two words in that question, or in the lead up to that question, Jeff, and I'd say my advice would be to take stock. Whether you're, in transition, maybe you've been displaced, and there's lots and lots of people who have, or, maybe they're even in a role, they're fortunate enough to have not been displaced. They've still got a salary or what have you, but take stock. And I think that's valid, whether you're in transition or even if you're a business that's struggling to find your way through this, because, take an inventory, whether it's, your skills and abilities, what makes you happy as an individual, if you're, trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up, or if you're a business, we all have assets, whether you're talking about, an individual or whether you're talking about a company or an organization. And I think what's easy to lose sight of is that inventory of assets and how you can use and capitalize on them to, find your way, plot that course toward, better success or happiness or whatever it is you're chasing.
Well said. Not everybody has a mentor like you were fortunate enough to have had. And, I'm a big advocate of the behavioral assessment, and, we've talked about the behavioral assessment tools before, and there are so many out there. And if you don't know what your tendencies are, whether you're, somebody that is more extroverted or introverted, or you like to bury your head in spreadsheets all day long. I mean, if you don't have somebody that is your mentor who you look up to help you with that, or you don't have access to some type of a behavioral assessment to help you understand yourself better, you're really sort of at a loss. And taking stock in what you believe in, what your passions are, it's so important. So kudos to you for recognizing that, making the change, and really being successful with it. Were there any challenges making that change? And, were you supported by your family? I'm sure you were, but were there any bumps in the road along the way?
Yeah, it's always a journey. I think, I mentioned my dad earlier. I think, I was afraid, candidly, to tell my dad I was going to go be a sales guy because of, his perception as an auto mechanic of, sales, car salesman.
Dads have a way of doing that, don't they? I mean, I would.
They really do.
Same kind of relationship with my father. I respected him greatly, but I was always fearful of telling him something that I knew wasn't going to make him happy.
Yeah. So, I got through that. My wife, by that time she was my wife. She was supportive of doing that. I think what I struggled with, in making that transition, Jeff, as an engineer, you're kind of, I call myself a recovering engineer because, I still have that kind of logical sort of brain. But I think my biggest struggle in making the transition from technical track to being more on the front end of the business and then commercial is, engineering, a lot of it is ones and zeros, right? It's black and white, where, in the commercial world, whether you're talking about, sales, marketing, what have you, it tends to get a little grayed. And I think that's probably what I struggled with the most. But that was also tremendous personal and professional development for me to, be able to make decisions, with maybe incomplete information, something that an engineer is not all that comfortable with, or having to be
right.
Quick on your feet and respond to, real-time inputs and either adjust an approach or a pitch or anything like that. And what I found as I got, more comfortable with that, and it was really more about immersion than anything. I mean, you got to succeed to survive, right? In a sales type function.
Yes, it's totally different than, another profession.
Yeah. And what I found was
steady paycheck. Yes.
Yeah. What I found was I actually enjoyed that, more because really fundamentally it's still problem solving. And that's what engineering is, right? You're trying to solve a problem. You're breaking a big problem down into smaller components and, trying to find a solution. And it really is the same sort of process. And I think that ultimately, made me successful in that, just given that I had that engineering background and was able to adapt to a different environment.
And you are, I can say this confidently now that we've known each other for a while now. You're good with people. You like people. And I think certainly there's more of that in the sales function than, and then I guess it depends on what type of engineer you are, but is it fair to say that there's not as much interaction with people and leadership development and things of that nature in engineering as in sales?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And that's what, after Jerry's, kind of eye-opening lunch that I had with him, thankfully I didn't just dismiss it. I, embraced it and started really kind of reflecting on it. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I just wasn't fulfilled sitting in a cubicle and trying to, design widgets. I needed that people aspect.
Yeah. The human interaction, which you're so good at. So stands to reason that would be challenging for you. So now that you're a guru sales consultant helping other businesses understand how they can improve the sales component of their business, what has your journey been like, and how has it changed you and your well-being? I'm sure you're much happier now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not necessarily a preacher of corporate is bad, because I think there are people that are happy in a corporate environment and things like that. you mentioned assessments earlier, Jeff, and I've been through dozens of them. As you know, I climbed the corporate ladder and got that shiny VP title. Mm-hmm. So I feel fortunate in that's allowed me to kind of learn more about myself. And you know, my tendency is to focus on the destination and not so much the journey. And it's the journey, I think, that you learn probably more from than, you know, achieving that goal or what have you. Just kind of keeping your eyes open. And to put it in one of you know, the psychologists that has performed many of the assessments that I've been on throughout my career, is stopping to smell the roses along the way.
Oh my goodness, for sure. Yes. So very hard to do these days, right?
No, it is. And I think I think it's really easy to forget that. And that's something that I was, just the way I'm wired, I'm not good at doing. So it's that kind of awareness that kind of drives my, I guess, intention, has driven my intention since I kind of got, you know, alerted to that. So to your question, I mean, my well-being, I would say I'm definitely happier. Mm-hmm. Now I think I'm a better father. I'm a better husband, and generally a better man. As a result of, you know, making the switch from corporate to starting my own practice.
And I don't want to demean or diminish what you just said. I think that's very profound, because what we do every day has an impact on us all, you know, comprehensively. And if we can do something every day that makes us a better person, which, you know, for us is better husband, better father, that means everything. So that is extremely important. So I appreciate you saying that, Rob. Thank you.
No, I'm glad to. And you know, if you're a better husband, you're a better father, you're a better person. Hopefully you can touch others along the way.
Well, that's what's important. Mark Twain said, "Doing something right is wonderful, but teaching others to do something right is even more wonderful." So absolutely. So now let's talk about sales specifically. And the pandemic has just been brutal on small business. I think most recently I read that there have been over 100,000 small businesses that have closed this year because of the pandemic. And I mean, that's just so discouraging to hear. And I know the problem is sales. They can't get out and meet their sales goals and what they need to sustain their business. What advice do you have for these business owners that are struggling in the sales area?
Sure. I'd go back to something you and I have already talked about, and that's take stock. You know, take a look at the relationships that you have in the marketplace, you know, and take this as an opportunity to re-engage with those customers on a different level. You know, their business may be struggling as well, but I mean, if you've got good customers, talk to them, and don't just talk to them about, hey, you know, where's my next order, but dig deeper. This is an opportunity to build a different dimension, I think, of relationship with your customers. Understand why it is they do business with you. You know, what is it that, you know, makes you attractive to them as a customer? Because I can guarantee you a number of things. You know, people right now are more, I guess, in tune and, I don't know, just cognizant of the pitch, right? You can't be a pitch man right now. You know, you can Google, you know, selling in a pandemic or selling virtually, and you'll get all kinds of resources. But, and I've read a lot of those articles. I think the best thing you can do right now to attract new customers is to be relatable, be empathetic, which is different, I think, pre-outbreak than it is now. And how you learn to do that, I think, is through taking stock and talking to your existing customer base, mining that data. Those are assets. That's part of your inventory of assets that you have as a business. And you need to exploit that and mine that and, extract that data and weave that into not necessarily a new pitch, but maybe, a new value proposition or unique selling proposition, whatever you want to call it. Because I think it's assessing what you have and how you've been successful now, and then trying to adapt that to this kind of new normal that we're all trying to deal with.
So that's interesting. You said that to be more authentic, more genuine, not necessarily the pitch, but to build those relationships through being, more genuine and authentic, and bringing that to your potential customers so they can know who you are, essentially. I think that's so interesting. It should be very simple to do, right? I mean, if you're just being yourself and being honest, it should be pretty simple to do. Can't be complicated.
In theory, yep.
True.
Now,
so go ahead.
I was just going to say, some of those, questions that you need to be asking of yourself can be kind of hard to answer. How do my customers want to buy from me now? What do my customers, need? What problem, can I solve? And, there's kind of a growing body of research. Gardner actually released a study several months ago that, buyers or customers, what's really driving them is less, about, some of the traditional things like, I want to be a thought leader, and some of those other buzzwords, into confidence that they're actually making a good decision in choosing to cut you a PO.
Because the ramifications are so much greater.
Right.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think that's a huge lesson learned going forward, that, first of all, we can't take anything for granted, because you never know when something huge is going to happen, like a pandemic. I mean, who would ever thought that our economy would completely shut down? Hopefully that never happens again. But you can't take anything for granted, and you have to be able to, just be genuine, right? Be yourself, and
absolutely
be able to move forward. So yeah, very important.
What I think, one of the realizations that I've come to in talking to customers and things like that, I did a talk not too long ago at a company's fall sales meeting, just kind of talking about, how you adjust, how you readjust, how you realign, and talking to their leadership. We all kind of came to the realization at the same time that from a sales perspective, that there are people who've been in sales for a long, long time. There are people who have been in sales for not too long of a time. But if you're in sales right now, everything's kind of been reset. We're all kind of brand new bag-carrying salespeople at this point, because it's the dynamic has changed. The paradigm has shifted. It's not the way it was before. So we're all kind of rookies.
Dare I use the word pivot? The
P word, yeah.
If there's any word that I've heard too much of, it's pivot. But truthfully, we've all had to do it, right? I've had to pivot.
Absolutely.
You've had to pivot. We all have to do it. It's just we have to. It's going to be something that we have to get used to. It's going to continue to happen, and always be at the ready, because you never know what the future is going to bring. And you said something about reassess and understand where you are now. Well, this lends itself perfectly to what I call the rear view mirror approach, or we just call it the RVM, and that stands for review, examine, adjust, and revise. And what we try to say in using this tool is we have to know where we were in the past to understand how we got there and what needs to be adjusted or changed going forward for a better future outcome. And I think that type of methodology works perfectly in your situation too, as you talked about how having to take stock, reassess, and know where your strengths and weaknesses are and what needs to be changed.
No, you're absolutely right. I think your rear view or your RVM, I mean, it's elegant, it's simple, and that's really at the core of what we've been talking about in taking inventory, examining, digging deep with your existing customers, figuring out why they do business with you and how you can take that information and, turn it into your new, value proposition, or, how you approach customers. The stories that you tell are going to be different. So I think your RVM construct is perfect for businesses and people that are trying to figure their way through this.
I really think it's so simple, but it can be applied to very complicating situations. Complicating in the fact that sometimes we don't know what we need to address in our business, or we don't know how things happen in such a way that we got to the present state. But if we simplify and just look and review, if you will, some of those major components, then we'll know what needs to be further examined, and then we'll know how to change things to get a better future outcome. So I'm so pleased that the RVM has been applied in different situations. My initial thought was to just use it on business assessment, but I think it can be used for any situation. And the good news is that it has been used in several different, not just business, but even personal situations. So hopefully the RVM can be used in some of your sales consulting as well.
I absolutely have used that. I mean, that was really kind of at the core of the talk that I talked about in trying to, help a larger sales organization figure out what they do for 2021. I mean, fundamentally, it was that kind of rear view mirror.
Excellent. I'm glad that you were able to use it. That's good. That's good to hear. So, in post-pandemic world, if we can say that, hopefully that will happen soon. Do you see more of a virtual element in sales as opposed to the in-person? And if so, how is that going to impact a lot of the folks that are in sales now?
I think for the foreseeable future, virtual is just a part of everyone's reality. Let's suppose that, there is a vaccine, and that things get back to maybe a closer semblance to pre-outbreak normal. I don't even know what to call that. But I think
nobody does, Rob. Nobody does.
Yeah, I know. And I think there's going to be. I think that the virtual, presence, or whatever it is, webinars, Zoom calls, Skype, Teams, GoToMeeting. I think that will continue to a degree. And I think the virtual, we've kind of already been starting to kind of drift toward that. I think that the pandemic, the outbreak, it has forced an evolution in this virtual kind of world. I mean, not only, in terms of virtual meetings, but business to consumer, or B2C e-commerce is nothing that's new, right? That's been,
right.
Amazon, Target has adopted that, Walmart, all of those things. It's forced I think that like business to business e-commerce has evolved probably 5 years in the last, 6-7 months. So I think our new environment is definitely going to be different, and it is going to be, one where different strategies are going to have to be employed. I don't, by any stretch of the imagination, think that the pandemic has forced the death of a salesman. But it's going to be different, even when we get back to a more normal, again, whatever that means, a more normal situation. Yeah. I think it's going to continue to be a part of the landscape.
Yeah, I think the person that is hesitant or resistant to accept the virtual world will probably have significant challenges. I mean, let's just simplify it. If you cannot be on a Zoom call because you don't like the technology or don't want to learn it, your future is really in jeopardy within your sales career or any other career, really, these days. I mean, would you agree?
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I hated it at first.
I'm right there with you. I was at the beginning meaning when we went into shutdown in the second week of March, we were told that it wasn't, a couple weeks, maybe till May or late April. So my thinking was at the time was, well, I'm just going to know what I need to know to get by right now with regard to Zoom. I'm not going to really immerse myself in Zoom because I'm not going to need to know it. Well, that was wrong, right? I mean, we do need to know Zoom, and nobody can tell you, well, we'll be done with this pandemic, February 1st. We don't know. That's the hard part. We are dealing with such uncertainty that we have to plan for any possible outcome and accepting the fact that, we're going to be on Zoom probably forever. And to some extent.
This will endure. This will endure. Yeah, there's no
absolutely.
doubt. And the more you embrace that and just accept it, I think the more successful you'll be. There are emerging, I think, industries and virtual trade shows, and this technology will continue to evolve as well. I mean, I learned about things that I had no idea were even in existence as a result of this. So the more you can be open to it and embrace it and try to use it for your benefit, I think the better.
Agreed. That's so true. So true. We also on this show, on the podcast, we talk a lot about leadership. And recently I talked about what I call the 13 absolutes of leadership. And we're not going to go into all 13 now, but I want to mention 2 because I think you embody these 2 most directly, and really you have just your personality. You impact others in a very positive way because you really exude these 2, what I call absolutes. And the first is courage. You've shown with your career change, if you will, your own pivot, shown courage to make that happen. You've shown courage every day to go out and consult and help other businesses where they might be lacking in sales. And your demeanor, you show a lot of courage. And I think that's so important. And of course, the other is a positive attitude. And positive attitude is contagious. And in sales that you're going to have so much more success if you are positive. Do you know too many successful salespeople, that always go around thinking, woe is me, I'm going to put my head in the sand, things will get better? No, right? Impossible.
Right.
So,
no.
My kudos to you for having the courage you've had and the positive attitude that you exude every day. But what advice would you have for others that are really struggling in this area, that they need to get that courage and positive attitude too?
Sure. Well, I mean, if you're a salesperson, and certainly a successful salesperson, you're an optimist, right? You're a glass half full type person. You see the opportunity and you want to talk to people about that opportunity. So first of all, thanks for the compliment, Jeff. That means a lot to me.
It's sincere. It's real. I mean, it's true.
So I'm a firm believer that, positive attitude is critical. And I think that goes back to something you've, kind of put forward in some of your, previous podcasts, having faith, right? Believing in yourself, believing in, what it is, whatever it is you're doing. And maybe that's, something as fundamental as maybe looking for a new job because you've been displaced. My career. So things will work out. Things will get better as long as you're willing to take action, and put one foot in front of the other. Things will always get better. Things will always get better if you're willing to do that. I don't know. I'm sure many people have had the experience of talking to somebody who is maybe not satisfied with their current position, whether they're employed or not, whether it's with their marriage or their business or their occupation, and they're just not willing to take action. Take action. Do something.
Well, and if you don't take action, that's a decision you've made, right?
Mm-hmm.
A bad one. But
exactly.
It's a decision that you made. You've got to take action.
And that sometimes that takes courage, to put yourself out there, to take that risk, to make yourself vulnerable. Don't be afraid of it. It's an opportunity for growth. Absolutely.
And, I've said before that I am a person of faith, and I do believe that faith is, it's one of the absolutes. And whether you have faith in God or, whatever you have faith in, a higher power, it keeps you accountable, it keeps you grounded, and it helps you have courage and that positive attitude that you need. And I would just add, since I am a person of faith, it says in the Bible 365 times not to be afraid. And so if I believe that's true, that it says 365 times. And if that's the case, then I think God really means it, right? I mean, he really means that we should not be afraid.
I agree.
So, Rob, this has been so great. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to talk to us about your career journey and your expert sales consultant. You are a guru in the field. Appreciate hearing all of your suggestions and advice. Is there any one go-to that you have, whether it's a book or an author that you follow or a speaker or anybody? Is there like a go-to that you always dial in for advice and inspiration?
Wow, that's a good question. I think from kind of a philosophical standpoint and kind of a business standpoint, I think the one author that speaks to me the most clearly is Gino Wickman.
Very good.
Yeah. And, his book Traction and Rocket Fuel and some of the others that kind of go along in that series that have really kind of, we're the foundation for a pretty big business in the entrepreneur operating system. I think those speak to me, and just kind of how he, is able to, categorize, compartmentalize, whatever you want to call it, but just the way he organizes thought around, how business should be conducted for, small and medium-sized businesses really speaks to me.
Very good. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I would say, we're talking sales, and we'd probably be remiss if we didn't mention the great Zig Ziglar, right? I mean,
I saw Zig in I've seen him many times, but I saw him in one of his later sort of speeches before he retired. And he's an icon, no doubt.
I just love to hear him talk. I mean, you could read his books, but you just don't get the same by reading his books as opposed to listening to him tell you what you need to do. And one of my favorites is you can get anything you want in life as long as you give others what they want. And
I think that's pretty powerful stuff.
It's having that servant attitude, we're here to serve others. So very
that
good.
Servant heart.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Rob, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us here on the Forensic Financialist. Appreciate your time. Appreciate everything you've had to say. Now, if people want to learn more about you and your expertise in sales, or just want to learn about your career shift, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, you can simple things. I mean, you can call me. You can email me. I'm pretty. I try to be present on LinkedIn, so you can reach out to me there as well.
Okay, Rob Smith on LinkedIn. Okay. And there's probably more than one Rob Smith, but
the Rob Smith on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But you can call me at 346-224-4594, or email me at rsmith@sales, the letter X, Celeration, CELERATION.com.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you so much, Rob. Again, it's been a pleasure. I hope you'll come back at some point in the future and tell us about all your successes in the world of sales consulting. As always, my hope is that... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, happy to be here, Jeff.
Oh, good.
I'll come back anytime.
Thank you so much. And to you, the listener, as always, I hope that you received at least one nugget of useful information today. And with Rob Smith, it'd be hard not to receive at least a dozen useful nuggets. But I hope you also got a little inspired. To learn more about me and my coaching and consulting, please visit understandablesolutions.com, or you can email me directly at jeff@understandablesolutions.com. If you liked what you heard, please review. It'd be even greater if you subscribe, and it'd be awesome if you decide to follow. Make it a great day. Make tomorrow even better. Peace, everyone.
You've been listening to the Forensic Financialist, where we simplify business and leadership challenges and choose the road that leads to wisdom and excellence. To learn more about Jeff, visit his website at understandablesolutions.com or email Jeff at jeff@understandablesolutions.com. Mentioning this podcast will get you a complimentary discovery session with Jeff. Until next time.